everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Full Court Cleveland on the FanDuel Sports Network. And we are from the Big Play Studios in front of cloudy but still beautiful Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Rafa Hernandez Brito, and I am joined by the shooter himself, Mr. Daniel Booby Gibson. What's up, Booby?
What's going on, my guy?
You done with the fulfilling the orders for Valentine's, or you still?
Yeah, I'm saying I got my heart out today. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the orders have been fulfilled, and now it's a little slower now. Now it's actually cultivating relationships as opposed to meeting people. You know,
I didn't know I was part of the package.
she got the teddy bear package.
We'll talk about it later, but Booby's heart is kind of that orange that the Longhorns have, but it's kind of turned a little red because it might be bleeding a little bit.
We'll
talk about it later on that. But first, we welcome Sam Amico to the show. You right in the middle, Sam. You're the one that keeps the boat steady. How's everything going?
I try. It's going well, thanks. It's been an exciting time for basketball because obviously we have March Madness and Cleveland Cavaliers still going on.
I don't care what anybody says, but this is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the best 4 days of the year if you're a sports lover, whether you gamble or not. But the first and second day of the NCAA tournament are just amazing because they start at noon and they finish almost a little bit past midnight. Kind of like the first day of the conference tournaments. I remember the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden was always amazing. But for those of you that don't know, the Rocket Arena will be hosting first and second rounds on Friday and Sunday. And it's going to be exciting to see some schools that have relationships to Cleveland, like St. Mary's, where Delhi play, like Vanderbilt, where the Cavs just visited in the previous road trip. And today, on Full Court Cleveland, we're going to talk about the demise that everybody's talking about. The Cavs lost 3 games. Wow, what's going on? Yeah. We're going to obviously go through the Cavs headline presented by Garage Beer. And we still don't have my QX 55 or 58 park outside, but Infinity is going to take us around the NBA. Just on top, to lay the table, put the table here, Booby. What's going on in the association with the Cavs, with March Madness?
I just think that, we got a little spoiled as Cavalier fans. You know what I mean? Like, with the streaks and winning 15 twice and 12 another time, I think you get so used to winning that when you lose, like, the whole world just is coming down on your head. And that's just not the case at all. As a player, I remember last night we was doing the broadcast. They kept bringing up the 09-010 season. I think that was when we won 66 games, right? And we had some tough stretches during that year. Like, and those moments are where we learn to trust each other, or where we got better, or where we got more connected as a team. And so I'm looking at this stretch right now, and the worst thing you want to do is start to peak as a team. You don't want to be at your best a month away from the playoffs, right? And so I think now what we're facing, we're seeing teams turn it to another level and flip that switch for playoff time. So last night, Sacramento was down some players, but I was listening to that arena, and they were in there because they have an opportunity to move up in the Western Conference standings. So I think what we're starting to tap into is the team will start to realize that it means a lot to these teams coming down this stretch. And so you have to go to another gear, and that's important. So I think right now, it might be good for us to lose a couple games and wake that dog up and ignite that fire in us to figure out what we want, how we want to, the team we want to be at the end of the season.
And we talked about it last week about how adversity usually brings either teams together or just breaks them apart. And the Cats have shown many times this year, and they just talk about this season, they have shown many times that Kenny Atkinson has these guys working together, wins and lessons. And yes, we lost 3 in a row, and there's plenty of things we need to fix
I like
there.
That, wins and lessons. I like that.
Yeah. Plenty of things we need to fix there, Sam. One of them is, like Booby was saying, we were facing a team in Sacramento that is still fighting to see if they can get at least 2 cracks to make it into the playoffs, move into that spot, the 7th or 8th spot. Yep. And also, Kenny hasn't really had the full deck in terms whether it's for rest or for injury, and that changes rotations, that changes approach. And at the end of the day, how many times have we talked about here about the season coming up is the one that we care about playing well?
Well, first of all, as Booby said, these are playoff games for these other teams, basically. And, the Cavs are at the point now where you're kind of in the dog days of the season, but you look at it like, are they that concerned? You're resting Evan Mobley for one game against the Magic. You're resting your all-star point guard and Darius Garland for another game. Yes, you want to win these games. That's the point of playing, but I just look at it like, well, the Cavs aren't bored anymore. They won 16 straight, and they just Donovan Mitchell said last night after the game, this is fun.
Yes, yeah.
This is part of it. This is all part of the season. Now we have a challenge and some adversity to overcome, which is great for when it really matters. We have to experience these things. So, as far as the Cavs are concerned, I just think they look at it like, we're going to get back on track. That's not a problem. How do we go about it? How are we going to attack it and go about it? But, yeah, not a concern at all.
Yeah, we're going to look about how we're going to look into this for next episode. No, next segment. We're going to talk about the headlines, not a concern, but some of the things that could get better with the Cavs as they move into the final stretch of the season and prepare for the night and the day when everybody starts 0-0 again, and that's when it gets really good. We'll be right back on Full Court Cleveland. Cleveland headlines are brought to you by our good friends at Garage Beer. Garage Beer comes in just 2 flavors, classic light lager and lime. No frills, no bitterness, no IPAs. It's just beer, flavor beer. Find your local retailers who sell Garage Beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com. Ryan, Boovie, Sam, and Rafa here with you. Full Court Cleveland, live from the Big Play Studios.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The Cavs have led at halftime in those 3 games that they lost in a row at the moment we speak right now. Those are the things that I think they need to look into.
Yeah.
Those are the things that they need to get better at. I think I mentioned the rotations, Boovie. Also, the long ball hasn't really been falling the way it has been.
Yeah.
We've been the number 1 almost in. But also, you can tell how different a team the Cavs are when the bench gets outscored by the opponent, which happens in Sacramento, and that's part of the Garland missing, so somebody comes off the bench, and that whole rotation goes Orion. And do you think that's something that at least something to work on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was listening to Coach Kenny the other night, and he made a great statement. He said there's a sweet science to peaking at the end of the season. And, Kenny is a mad scientist. And so when I think about the rotations coming down the stretch, we've talked about how deep this team is and the team that we want to be going into the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see the sweet spot that he figures out for these rotations. Like last night, he went with Dean Wade to start to keep DeAndre Hunter and Jerome coming off of the bench, so that we still had that some firepower coming off of the bench. But to your point, with sitting guys, rhythm starts to become an issue for the starting group and for the bench. And so I think that Kenny and that staff is going to have to toe that line of resting guys and making sure guys are healthy, because that's a part of the sweet science. A part of the science is also luck. The defense, again, what you said to the three-point line, is going to have to pick up. And, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we either rev it up a bit going into the playoffs and the guys start to potentially play their minutes. Because in a way, I also want to see Spider get some of those minutes, and I feel like what he'll be required to do come playoff time. So when you think about being ahead at halftime and teams making a push, those are the moments where we'll look to Spider to take over games in those moments. So I think that right now, these are great tests for us. Great tests for us to start building that rhythm and putting guys in the positions that they'll be in during the postseason.
And I think that's the most important part. That part, and also because you're getting you're giving a Sam Merrill or a Dean Wade a chance to be in moments that you might need them at.
Absolutely.
In the playoff. I know what you're talking about, and I'm pretty sure Kenny Atkinson has a map and a plan that how he's going to bring it up in the playoff. And obviously, when you need Donovan Mitchell on the court, you're going to throw him out there. But things happen during a game or during a series, injuries, foul trouble. So you need to have, and I think that's when the Cavs are in the best position, Sam. When you have these guys ready, when a Sam Merrill has been there and done that during the season, that's when you have to be ready. Now, when you evaluate the 3 losses, one of them against Orlando, for example, how do I explain, and I need your help because you're a man that is well-versed with the English language.
I hope so.
And actually can put thoughts together because you are great writers. How do you explain to our fans that are kind of jumping off the X window and everything that a regular season matchup means, for the most part, actually nothing, except especially that loss to Orlando cannot be used to equate it into, oh my God, if we go into a series, because there's 2 different teams right now that played that 7-game series last season.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. The Cavs are, first of all, the Cavs went to Orlando a couple weeks ago and won by 40 points, right? So, I think that there's just some, you have to look at it. Every game's different. It's not a matchup in terms of a playoff matchup because, as we all know, the playoffs are a different beast. So, you look at that game against the loss to Orlando, the Cavs just didn't have it that day. They weren't making shots. They had just won, a couple nights earlier, went into Memphis, which at the time was the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, and won there. So I just think that they, when you win 16 in a row for the set, well, you won 15 in a row, 12 in a row, then 16 in a row. This is the NBA. You're allowed a couple losses here and there. This is not a playoff situation. You've pretty much wrapped up the Eastern Conference if you're the Cavs with the number 1 seed. So, right now, and Evan Mobley admitted this after the loss last night, where he said, yeah, some guys probably, including myself, have one eye on the playoffs right now, and that's we can't get there yet, but that's probably the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I can see the fans on X right now sitting on the couch and our therapy with Sam Amico, and then I go to you.
Yeah.
Booby, because you've been there and done that. I have done it on the plane, and even just doing it on the plane, meaning the road trips, trust me, it's really, really bad. But the Cavs lost to Orlando, got on a plane, flew to LA, played the Clippers, got on a plane, flew to Sacramento, played Sacramento, got on a plane, and flew to Phoenix.
Yeah.
I mean, put it to words. I mean, I'm getting you guys help today because it is not just as easy as I just rattled it all out.
No, absolutely. Like you mentioned it, dog days of the season, right? It's you play 82 games out of the year. And regardless of if we feel like the guys have been tailoring their minutes and bringing them down a little bit, there's still the wear and tear on your body. You still have everybody right now in the NBA is hurting physically. And I think everybody, all the fans need to know that. And that's where, the rest days come in. But at the same token, if we're saying the team that we want to be at the end of the year is the last team standing, this is where that next level kicks in. This is where you understand, however my body feels, whatever's going on inside, mentally, I have what it takes to take it to another level. And so that's what I can say about those teams that I played with during the 09-08 year when we had those 66 wins. It was like, okay, we all feel terrible right now landing out here, but we have each other and we have this goal in mind that's way more important than how we feel. So that we'll see the resolve of this team, which we've saw all season long, and I feel like it'll be no different getting closer to the playoffs.
I know, by the way, the goal in mind has nothing to do with beating the best record in the regular season that the Cavs have in their history, or starting 15-0, or having the best record in the NBA. The goal of the season for anybody playing in a competitive sport is to play and win the last game of the season, which is the last game of the finals.
And back to that X factor point, I will say, when you mentioned like how guys are getting the opportunity now, so when their name is called in the playoffs, one of them seasons I was talking about, I wasn't getting, matter of fact, it might have been that rookie year, I wasn't getting a lot of minutes. And then LeBron set the last game of the season. And that game, I had probably one of my best games of the year because I got so many minutes. So going into the playoffs, I was just waiting for my opportunity to get on the floor. So I feel like, to your point, some of the guys will be waiting for their opportunity, but we're just such a loaded team. It's tough.
Now the Cavs still, as we speak, have to finish the road trip and then come home for a quick before they go out again for another back-to-back. We'll do one of Sam's favorite segments when we come back, which is when he gets to pull out his crystal ball and look into the future to see what's coming up for the Cavs next week, right here on Full Court Cleveland. Welcome back to Full Court Cleveland's Ryan, Boobie, Sam, and yours truly, Rafa, with you. And let's look ahead because we have talked about this long road trip that the Cavs are in. And guess what? As we speak, they're still halfway to go. They got to go to Phoenix. Yeah. Then they got to go to
Utah,
and then Portland.
Yeah.
Different situational teams. The Suns are fighting for their lives to get into the play-in. I'm not in there. I don't know how much they want to just rather stay off and see.
Nah,
they don't know
what's going.
I'm saying.
They got some old guys.
I'm talking to the fans that are actually evaluating the thing.
They got some
I know
old,
they want to win.
They got some old guys over there.
They got Kevin Durant who don't want to go home.
One thing I know about him is he want to win now.
Then they got a team in a whole different situation in Utah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the T word, but they are trying to figure out how they can do better for that 14% chance to get the number one pick. And then a team that we beat in overtime, right? Against Portland. So how do you see those three games? And then we'll look at the rest.
Well, obviously Phoenix is really fighting for something, and that's where the Cavs have been in this losing streak. Orlando fighting for something. Clippers, all these teams are fighting for playoff positioning. Sacramento. I looked at the Sacramento Kings social media account, the Twitter account. They acted like they just won the championship. You know, they were like, we beat the number one team in the NBA. So that's how teams are approaching the Cavs. Yeah. And they're all fighting for playoff positioning. And if you're the Cavs and you don't watch the standings, but at the same time, they're up, at this point, 6 games over the Celtics in the East for the number one seed. So, you just have to be careful because this is everybody else's championship, right? The Utah Jazz, they don't want to win much, but they probably want to win that game. Yep. And they played the Cavs tough in Cleveland. So every night, these are NBA players, and you've got to be ready. And, the great news is there is still 3 games left on this trip. And if the Cavs can finish strong, nobody's going to remember this 3-game losing streak, right? So I just think that, yes, these are all tough teams. This is all their championship because they're fighting for playoff positioning, whereas, the Cavs are kind of right now in that mode where it's like, just get us to the playoffs, but we want to get there healthy. Strong.
Yeah.
Now, and then you have Utah, who is, I don't know how to evaluate that game because they're like less than a handful of games away from being the 4th worst team in the NBA, which takes them out of the 14% chance of getting the number one pick, which is the highest percentage when you throw all the balls in the thing. And also, then you get a team in Portland, which a lot of athleticism, a lot of young guys, and a head coach that I know for a fact hates to lose.
They still finna say the Trailblazers still have a chance to make the play-in.
Yeah.
So I think right now Chauncey, to your point, is like playing for his job too. Mm-hmm. He wants to show that these guys are trending in the right direction. And when you think about those teams like Utah, just as a player, they playing for contracts. They're playing for an opportunity to come back the next season. And so even though it may look like a team might be vying for a higher position in the when those balls drop, I do think that these teams still have something to play for. There's still a pride that's intact for a lot of these players because their careers are on the line.
And even though Utah has changed a lot since that big trade with the Cavs, you have to remember too, Sam, that Colin Sexton and Larry Markkanen are still there.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they'll have an extra
sure
when they play the Cavs.
Yeah, any time you play a team that traded you, I'm pretty sure you want to show them that you made a mistake. I remember when Andrew Wiggins first came in with the Timberwolves, it's like every game Andrew Wiggins would have a career game against the Cavs after they traded him.
I hope he's not mad now that he's playing with Kevin Love.
I think he's not upset anymore. What are the odds of that? He's playing with Kevin Love now. But
that's how the NBA goes.
Right. Yeah. You just, Utah is a team that obviously they're looking at what is considered a deep draft. But they're going to have every reason to be motivated, as everybody does, when the number one team in the Eastern Conference, a team that's fighting for the overall best record and has been the best story, one of the best stories in the NBA all season, is coming to town. That's your championship. So the Cavs know that. They're getting used to that kind of label. But yeah, you can't take your foot off the gas just because a team like the Utah Jazz wants high lottery pick.
it should get us going though, right? It should get us. It should light that fire for us, because one thing about the NBA, because it's so long, you got to create your own energy sometimes. You got to just come, like they used to say, Michael Jordan used to just come up with the fact that somebody says something about his family just so that he could go a little harder. Sometimes when it gets to this point of the season, you need bulletin board material, something to make you say, all right, let's go turn it up against these guys. And I think the fact that these guys don't want to be looked at as a regular season team. We want to be a team that does our thing in the playoffs. I think this is a great challenge for us to, like I said, bring that dog out.
And I'm also hoping that going home means a rebirth also for the latter-day sniper that is going to be back home. and he played he shot the ball really well since February 2nd when we had that big game, and was shooting close to 40% from three, almost 50% from three. And Sam is going home. Obviously, he grew up
not far.
A Jazz fan, but he's played very well against the Jazz all the time.
Yeah. It's funny because he and Donovan, when Sam Merrill was at Utah State and Donovan was with the Jazz, they used to play pickup together.
Oh, really?
So they've known each other for a little while. But yeah, Sam Merrill always seems to do well there. I think that helps when players go home, and maybe you win.
And that's the thing. We was trying to figure that out last night when all the guys were talking about their favorite place to play on the road. And all the guys were talking about going home and playing at home. I played terrible. Every time I went to Houston. It's like you got to worry about the tickets. You got everybody in the, you know what I mean? The whole family's there. So I love Houston, but I just hated going home and playing there with the Rockets.
I do love going home because I don't get to play, but I get to work around my city. But when we come back in Full Court Cleveland, we have another favorite episode. Even though Booby's here, we're going to allow Sam Amico to go more than just the top
These
three.
Guys,
it's like
man.
a 3
top 10.
6-pack of garage beer, whatever you want. We're going to be doing the power rank when we come back on Full Court Cleveland. De regreso con ustedes en Full Court Cleveland, Ryan Booby, el disparador, el tirador. Sam Amico, el escritor.
English, Rafa. English.
I have to do an intro, man, for my people.
I gotta learn. I never know what he's saying.
Hey, listen,
but it gets the people going.
There's so many things in this powered ranking that I might get off script here a little bit, because to begin with, you, Booby, are the only one that know about trash talking on the court. I know, Sam, I don't know if you trash talk when you write, but, a
little bit.
I do some trash talking. I'm more of a salt in the wound type of guy.
Yeah.
Not more than like trash talking, but
today,
we know the paper here says that we are going to power rank the best trash talkers in the NBA. Remember,
now?
And I want, before you go through that, I want to ask you, I don't know if it's something of today's game, or is this something that has been going with you all the time? We saw Ty Jerome and Paulo Banchero. It's kind of like a mismatch there when it comes to like trash talking. But
they're not going.
Why do they always seem to be talking to the bench? Like Ty is one of those guys that every time he hits a three or something, it's like
because it's always the bench doing the most talking.
Yeah.
It's normally not the guys on the court that have to play defense against the guy. It's the guy on the bench that makes him mad, and you have to guard him. That's what the guys do. And so that's normally, even when you're in the corner, I spent a lot of time in the corner. And you hear some wild things in the corner on the swing before it comes to you and shoot. So the first thing you do is want to turn to the bench and tell them, you know what I mean, this is what I do. So absolutely, I feel like, and I love it though, because it just brings that passion back to the game. And just guys are just competing. But if we were talking about like biggest trash talkers, Kevin Garnett.
Yeah.
Literally.
On and off the court.
As soon as I got on the court, this was like my first action in the NBA. He was like, "Who is this little mother? Somebody get this little mother. What are you doing out here? Hey, no, get this little motherfucker off the court." I'm like, bro. And then like the more he goes, he toes that line where like, is this basketball related or what are we doing? Are we competing or do we need to go outside?
Trash talk doing his job. Yeah, you thinking about it.
It definitely did when I first came in, but then I understood what it was about. So I think in today's game, I got to give it to Draymond, right? The way he kind of got into Cat's head with the whole Jimmy Butler thing. And I know Jimmy Butler was putting a battery pack in his back about why he didn't play in the game before. So I'll give it to Draymond. But I think it's a place for it in the league. They don't allow us to really hand check and play physical defense. So you got to find ways to get into the opponent's head for sure.
Yeah. How about you, Sam?
To me, Draymond Green is the obvious answer, I would think. Dylan Brooks is probably way up there.
I just hate that he does that.
It's a big difference when you are a trash talker and you walk the talk.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
You can't get 50 put on your head when you talk noise to somebody.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference there in terms of like what Draymond does. Sometimes he even gets affected himself by his trash talk like he did in the finals against us in 2016.
The top.
Even get his team going, too.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, in a fun-loving way, a guy that we know that never shuts up. I mean, nonstop is George Niang. Mm-hmm. And he's funny.
You think?
He and Paolo Banchero the other day were going back to George, of course, being with the Hawks.
The great thing about George, though, is that he'll never lose a battle because everything they say about him just lies on
He doesn't care.
He don't care because he makes fun of himself.
Right. And he and Paolo Banchero were going at it the other day, and Paolo Banchero said, what happened last year in the playoffs? What'd I do last year in the playoffs? And George said, we sent you home.
Right.
and Paolo Banchero had nothing else to say. George is one of the good ones, of course, and then. Yeah, I mean, as far as in Cleveland, Ty Jerome, it's nonstop. Yeah. In a good way, and he's been backing it up.
But
he
walks it though. Yeah, that's what I like about it. There's nothing more annoying than to see somebody just chirping in there and then not really.
Yeah, most of the bench guys that are talking noise, they're gonna fire the other guy up on the other team. And he's gonna give you 40, and knowing you couldn't stop him.
I tell you who I love as a human being. And he did play with us for the championship and always was funny telling stories about being on the bench, Channing Frye.
Yeah.
Because his trash talking was always kind of like silly.
Yeah.
But, he's from the barbecue chicken thing and like, come get this baby out here. Whose baby is this?
And never had to guard the guy.
Right.
And then he tells stories about when he guarded Shaq the first time, and he kind of started talking trash to Shaq, and he ended up in the third row behind the basket at Madison Square Garden.
Exactly. That's normally how it goes when those guys turn it up. I heard a story about, I think, Isaiah Ryder and Kevin Garnett, again,
and
said something to Jordan.
Yeah.
Go at him, kick his ass, go at him. And then next thing you know, Jordan is giving Isaiah Ryder 45, and he's like, bro, we was good until you got the go going.
Isaiah Ryder had to tell Kevin Garnett to shut up because he was guarding Jordan.
Some of the best stories about trash talking, and I hate to bring my upbringing in the NBA, is Larry Bird.
I hear about him all the time.
There's stories where him going and saying, you're going to guard me? Okay, you know what? I'm going to just shoot with the left.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to put 50. I'm going to shoot just from this spot all day. And he would do it and just take the guy to the cleaners.
What I learned is you should never trash talk the guys that can shoot the ball whenever they want to. There's only a few guys that got the ultra green.
Don't poke the bear.
Do not poke the bear. The guys that got the ultra green light, leave them alone. Because they got the whole game to get rhythm going. And, like, if you getting a select amount of shots, then it's not fair for you to.
I forget what year it was. We were playing in Miami and then going to Orlando for the next game back-to-back. And it was already stated that LeBron and Kevin were sitting out. Or something happened, but LeBron had to play.
Yeah.
And it was one of those calendar losses that it's going to be, 3 guys sitting out and third, in those days, like 4 in 6 days or whatever it was, 4 in 5 days. And what's the name of the guy that's playing for Detroit now? He will play for Channing Frye's first cousin, Tobias Harris.
Okay.
Tobias Harris
I wouldn't have got that.
had an offensive foul on LeBron, and he called him a flopper.
Oh, no.
And LeBron, in the middle of the third quarter, and LeBron ended up with like 40 points, and we won the game.
A game
and
that,
it was like, okay, you woke him up. Like
Right,
he was already happy getting on the plate with a loss.
Absolutely. I've seen the fans do that thing. I've seen the fans get guys going, too. You hear somebody chirping on the side, and then
it happened here at the arena once, but I won't talk about that. We'll come back with around the NBA. I'm getting the keys for my Infinity when we come back on Full Court Cleveland. Welcome back, everybody, to Full Court Cleveland, and we are proud to announce that, we announced it last week, right? But it's proudly sponsored by Infinity. Safety has never looked this good. With a suite of standard intelligent safety features, the all-new QX80 is as safe as it is luxurious. The Infinity QX80 is great for the whole family as it offers 3 spacious rows and is an IIHS top safety pick. So go check out everything Infinity has to offer right now. And let's take a drive around the NBA top storylines this week on the QX80 from Infinity. What do you got to say about the association, the Celtics being sold for $6.1 billion?
I just saw that. I mean, hey, they're one of the most historic franchises in the game, but $6.1 billion is, that's nice. I just hope. I hear a lot of horror stories about these teams being bought by guys or families that don't really care much about keeping that legacy going or care much about basketball and have other things that they're more concerned about. I just hope that they still are, NBA fans, and they're going to do the right thing with that organization. Because
I don't think there's a way you can do the wrong thing in Boston.
I mean, what I've been hearing, I don't want to just throw
if you're paying $6
theories
billion
out there, but I mean, it's like you set up another entity, you set up another business, kind of like what I've been hearing about Dallas and making that move with Luka. That there's other things that they're really
behind
trying.
The curtain stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I just hope that these guys throw that big money around initially, and they have ulterior motives. So if it's for the right reason, I mean, hey, Boston is Boston. I mean, they got the most championships in the game.
I have something against whoever wrote this thing that they gave me, because it says that this will be the most expensive sports franchise in North American sports history. The most expensive that has been sold, I would say, because the previous high was $6 billion for the Commanders. Right?
Yeah.
And then the previous record for the NBA was $4 billion for the Suns when they were forced to be sold. Now, what other franchises? You think the Yankees will go for more than $6 billion?
Yes, the Yankees, Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I think they see this deal and they're like, ooh.
It's the biggest in NBA. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm with Booby. You always worry when a team gets sold. It's like, what's the motive? We saw with the Mavericks. Yeah. You think that Luka Doncic trade, you're like, is that sounds like something that would actually come from ownership. It wasn't a basketball decision. So you wouldn't think anyway. Right. So that's where your concern is. But fortunately in Cleveland, you obviously have a great owner.
We were talking about what everybody's feeling right now in the NBA. Obviously, the Cavs have been really lucky about the things they cannot control, which is health and injuries. Out of all these injuries, Booby, Denver with Jokic and Murray, OKC with Jalen Williams, the Lakers with the King, LeBron James, Memphis, Ja Morant, Sabonis with Sacramento, Anthony Davis with any team that he plays, Jalen Brunson in New York, Halliburton, Mo Wagner. Which one? Mo Wagner and Suggs for Orlando really changes that team completely.
Yeah.
Which one do you think out of all those teams I thought the Nuggets were kind of starting to step it up there, and then these 2 injuries, basically their heart.
Yeah, I think when I think about Denver, when I look to when they won the championship, I just felt like they had a better bench. So a lot of teams put them in like the team to beat, and I don't think they're as good of a team as they were then. They still have those guys, but whenever those guys sat down, they had veterans coming out there and making things happen during that time. And when Joker's off the floor now, I feel like they just fall off the cliff. They don't have anything to replace that. But with that being said, a lot of those names were on the West, and again, I think it's wide open. So I feel like if LeBron's injury is not as bad as it was in the past, and he's able to come back, and these guys are getting into a rhythm with the way Luka's starting to play now. Without him, it's becoming his team. I think for the Lakers, they have if I was picking a sleeper team or a team and I felt like could sneak their way through the West, I would probably go with the Lakers if LeBron could get all the way back healthy.
With the finals preview.
Nah, I didn't say because I still have no clue what's going on in the West. Right. So they're tough to beat, I would say.
Out of the matchups, is Sam now riding shotgun on the QX80 with Infinity as we go around the association?
Absolutely.
The big matchups coming up Friday: Grizzlies and Clippers. Both teams still trying to stay on top of that top 6 in the NBA in the Western Conference. On Sunday, Nuggets at Rockets. One game separates these two teams. And T-Wolves and Pacers, different conferences, but also both fighting for something in that situation. Those 3 big matches, Sam.
Yeah, and I'm with Booby when it comes to the Nuggets. It's like, Ralph, going way back, 87, you remember the 87 Celtics. Uh-huh. Remember they had to play their starters like 45 minutes a game in the playoffs? Yeah. That's what these Nuggets might have to do, because they're not, unlike the Lakers with LeBron out, who are getting great play from quote-unquote role players such as Jackson Hayes. Austin Reeves has been fantastic. Some of these other guys, Gabe Vincent, all of these guys are stepping up, whereas the Nuggets, when Jokic is out or Murray's out, the other guys haven't really taken it to another level. Yeah. So that's a concern in the West. You mentioned one team we don't talk about at all, which went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, the Indiana Pacers. Mm-hmm. Both the Pacers and the Timberwolves, to me, are like sleepers in their respective conferences. And they're playing this week. Yeah. Right. They're hard outs. And Indiana's been there before now. Mm-hmm. Their core has been to the Eastern Conference Finals. They got a taste of that. They're playing well. They're flying under the radar. They're a scary team, but and the same thing with Minnesota. They're starting to pull it together. They lost the other night, but they had won 13 straight since Julius Randle came back. Yeah. So, these are teams that are starting to put it together at the right time. And
that's great news for Minnesota to be able to use Julius Randle on something positive for them, because the beginning of the season for him was just him and DiVincenzo, the hardest time. Yeah, I think dealing with the trade or getting used to where they were, the situation they were at, which wasn't a bad situation. I mean, they just came, the team that just came from the NBA, from the conference finals, no?
Right.
Yeah, I think it was emotional. I think they had to.
It was like really hard to watch.
Yeah, they had to get rid of the emotions first, because they probably both of them felt like they were going to be in New York for the run, and then all of a sudden you got to leave. And I mean, obviously Minnesota had just got to the Western Conference Finals, but it still was like a shock to them. And so, like you said, some teams take a little bit longer to put it together. But again, we talk about peaking at the right time, and one of those sweet science philosophies being the best team that's playing the best at the end of the year is normally the team that has the best time to win.
Especially DiVincenzo, who thought he was back at Villanova.
Yeah, he had his brothers with him. They on the podcast.
After playing only 35 minutes, he feels rested now in Minnesota. Thanks again to our friends from Infinity. If you're in the market for a safe, sleek, sophisticated new vehicle, be sure to check out the all-new QX80 and stay tuned, because we're going to come back with the off-topic subjects here on Full Court Cleveland. Down the stretch we come on Full Court Cleveland. Ryan, Booby, Sam, and yours truly, Rafa. And off topic here is one of my best subjects, because I get to go away. Is the Longhorns in the tournament this year? Look at my bracket.
Hey, Ralph, I'm on this water fast, man. I'm really irritable right now, man. I'll maybe climb on the table, but... Yeah, March Madness is come off to a slow start for the Horns. We went down last night, but
Booby had already filled his bracket with the Longhorns going to San Antonio.
I did, but the sweet part about the brackets is they were 11-11. So now, as long as Xavier does what I expected Texas to do, my bracket will still be okay. Yeah. I guess my question for you, a little bit off of that, is how do we feel about the NCAA landscape right now with how teams with the transfer portal and teams not feeling like they can build, because you speak of Texas, and I've been hearing some wild rumors about the coaching staff and how quickly they ready to switch over and get a new coach. And it's like these coaches, their lifespan is very short now in college, because I feel like now you have the boosters adding pressure because of the money that they're putting into the program. So guys don't even have long. This is maybe his second season, and they went to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
This is my take on this movie. I think it was very wrong the way it was before.
Yeah.
But I think they took it to the other extreme, which is just as bad.
Too far.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because now it just made it like, I don't want to say loyalty or anything, but now it just make it too easy. If a kid is having a hard time at a program, you know what? I'm out. Or there comes the sneaker company and giving him $500,000, $600,000 to move to this other school. Like you've seen it with like players of the conference moving to other schools. So it's kind of like, I don't know the topic, Sam. You probably know a lot better than me, but it's like, I do believe that it hasn't really been resolved because it went from one bad to another bad.
Right. You're exactly, it went from bad to worse. There was there's no winning with this. It's like degrees of losing.
Yeah.
But it was bad before. You know, the players weren't being compensated. The schools were getting all this money that the players and the athletes were generating, and it was going all to the coaches in school. So that wasn't fair. But now you've gone too far the other way where, you know, you're, as a kid, you know, you don't want to teach kids, look, when something goes bad, just immediately jump ship. Because that's not really a great way to live your life. You know, you got to be able to fight through things and have some resiliency when you're not getting the playing time you want, right? So, I mean, I think that, you know, when you transferred before, you used to have to sit out a year, maybe bring that back. Or if you're going to sign people to NIL deals, make it for 2 or 3 years. And then if they want to go pro, then it can cancel. But you can't transfer outside of that. So
I don't like the sitting out part. I do find myself a little uncomfortable with these 17, 18-year-old kids making decisions on just money.
Right.
I'm nothing against making money, but I don't think they have. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of them at that age, I didn't even know how to balance a checkbook. Nobody has checkbooks anymore, okay? But now you have but I think it's just movement based solely on what can you do for me or what can you give me, and never anymore about, man, if I go to this program, I'm going to be really ready for the NBA. Like if I play for Calipari, if I play for this guy. So you know what I mean? So I don't think it's decisions being made looking into the future if you really want to be a basketball player.
Yeah, no, that's my biggest gripe when I look at it. I can imagine, like, Rick Barnes, I love him to death to this day, but when I was playing for him, if I would have had the option to leave, I would have left, and that wouldn't have put me in a position to make it to the NBA. And I feel like that's the scariest part for a lot of these kids. Yeah, they're making a lot of money, and that the ones that are in the headlines are actually making a lot of money. There's a lot of other kids that aren't making as much as that, and they too are jeopardizing their professional careers by continuing to switch schools, because at our level, I'm on the scouting side too. And the more times you move around and the older you get, the less likely the NBA is looking at you. They start to look at you as the player that you are and no longer by your potential. And so these kids are missing out on life-changing money, generational
lessons,
wealth.
Man, learning.
Yes, you know what I mean? And so it's just tough. And even when I think about Jay Wright talking about Villanova, how hard he coaches and how those kids, they learn so much. And now you think about the guys that are with the Knicks and how hard they play just from staying in school and learning from him. You don't really have that around the college basketball no more. So I just hate to see that for a lot of kids. And a lot of high school kids aren't even getting recruited no more.
Less than a minute to go. Let's talk the happy part. Who wins the tournament?
Texas. I mean,
are they still able to go to the NIT?
In spirit. I think I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna throw one out there. I'm gonna just say, let's go Florida, since they're in the same place.
The Akron Zips.
Oh,
I mean, hey, Ralph, I actually have Duke in all my brackets, so I hope that Duke wins. I hate to say that out loud, but I have them in all my brackets.
I have Florida winning.
Is Flag playing?
I have Florida winning it all in my brackets, but if I was to pick a dark horse, I would go with Tom Izzo. talking about playing for coaches that can actually get you ready to learn something in life and to get you ready for the next level. Michigan State.
I'm going with St. John's as my dark horse.
St. John's, yeah, it's my old school. I have some love for hitting over here for the Red Storm. Even though when I started with them with the Red Man, it changed the name to the Red Storm. That's it for the show this week, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with Booby and the NIT. Are the Longhorns in the NIT or
was the color TV? Did you have color TV when they were there?
Let's go. Bye.